History was made today, and many observers tried to place this moment in history, including Republicans. Newt Gingrich said today that Donald Trump made, quote, the most serious mistake of his presidency. Republican Senator Ben Sasse said this.
Let's not mince words. Today was a terrible day for the American brand, for the American people, and for all of our allies. We did not negotiate from a position of strength. We acted from a position of weakness. As a result, one of the world's worst despots walked away today from Helsinki with a win.
Arizona's retiring Republican Senator Jeff Flake said this.
I thought it was shameful, and I never thought I'd see an American president throw the intelligence community under the bus like that and agree with a dictator, an authoritarian like he did. So it's not a good day for the country.
But no Republican was more forceful in criticism of the president today than Senator John McCain, who issued a written statement saying today's press conference in Helsinki was one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in memory. The damage inflicted by President Trump's naivete, egotism, false equivalence, and sympathy for autocrats is difficult to calculate. But it is clear that the summit in Helsinki was a tragic mistake. No prior president has ever abased himself more abjectly before a tyrant. Joining us now, Jon Meacham, presidential historian and author of the best-selling book, The Soul of America, The Battle for Our Better Angels. He is also an MSNBC contributor. And Richard Stengel is with us. He's a former Undersecretary of State in the Obama administration and a former managing editor of Time magazine, where he once had the opportunity to interview Vladimir Putin. He is now an MSNBC political analyst. And Jon Meacham, place this day in history for us. John McCain has issued language about it that is as forceful as any condemning language that we've heard all day from anyone.
The only thing I would have said to Senator McCain's statement is I don't think it's in memory. I think it might be in history. I think it goes far beyond the living memory of the country. Just 2 points, one looking back, one looking forward. This is what many Americans feared in the 1790s. One of the great divisions when we set out on the national experiment in the Constitution was that the Federalists would be captives of Britain and the Democratic Republicans might be captives of France. And so there was a fevered kind of conspiracism that shaped the first decade of our political history. What's different now is that it may not be a conspiracy theory at this point. It's becoming ever more evident that if the president is not an asset of a foreign power, then the onus is now on him to explain why he continues to act this way. And so sometimes when a duck quacks like a duck, it's a duck. The other point in looking forward is it seems to me that the unfolding narrative here is one in which this day will be an incredibly important moment on a timeline. And that, to me, that's what's scariest, because what is it that Putin really wants from this relationship? And I don't think we've yet seen him try to cash the check that he clearly has in his pocket.
And Rick, John McCain went on to say, coming close on the heels of President Trump's bombastic and erratic conduct towards our closest friends and allies in Brussels and Britain, today's press conference marks a recent low in the history of the American presidency.
I think we have a national security crisis going on, as some people have said. You have an American president. The Constitution says he must take care that the laws are faithfully executed. He went to Helsinki, stood next to a foreign dictator, and sided with the dictator over our own intelligence establishment and law enforcement and Justice Department. Why is that? It's very strange. What happens now to all those people? You're talking about Dan Coats before. There are tens of thousands of men and women who are serving in these agencies in Washington, and you have the titular head of it who has betrayed all of your interests for reasons that nobody knows.
Just give us a quick insight into what it is like to be sitting in the room with Vladimir Putin. I think we have a photograph of you doing it. What is it that Donald Trump is falling for?
Well, I don't know that he's fallen for anything. I mean, he does seem to admire autocrats. I mean, if if you were Vladimir Putin, there would be a chill, cold air coming and hitting me right now. I remember,
That's the way it felt when you were talking.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Henry Kissinger said to me beforehand, "You will be surprised how little he tries to charm you." There's no affect that he has at all.
John Meacham, I want to give you another line from John McCain, because I think John McCain was trying to place this in our history. He said, not only did President Trump fail to speak the truth about an adversary, but speaking for America to the world, our president failed to defend all that makes us who we are, a republic of free people dedicated to the cause of liberty at home and abroad.
Well, that's the great American. Insofar as we are an exceptional country, that is where our exceptionalism has been. General Powell once said that we've gone abroad, we've projected force, and all we've ever asked for is the ground in which to bury our dead. And there's a lot to that. I'm not saying we're a blameless country, far from it, but we have, in fact, defined ourselves as what Lincoln's called us, the last best hope. And President Reagan, who, Lord, God knows what he's thinking at this point, it's saying the last best hope of man on earth. And I think that we have reached a point where there's a significant, if it's not irreparable, but it is a hugely significant breach in our ongoing faith with the global community. And what worries me most is the known unknown, as Donald Rumsfeld might put it, of what happens next. Let's say Putin, just look at this whole week, the last 5-6 days in total. What happens if Putin launches military action against, say, the Baltics? What is it that President Trump, what about his comments at NATO suggests that he would follow an invocation of Article 5 and actually project American force in defense of the values that not only do we have an intellectual and moral assent to, but a contractual one, a treaty one? I think that's the great question going forward.
John Meacham and Rick Stengel, we really appreciate your invaluable perspectives on this tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, both of you. Really appreciate it. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.